Have you ever been forced to follow a path you didn't choose? I was forced to marry a duke against my will, and the pain of this imposed fate was almost unbearable. But then everything suddenly changed. In the midst of the darkness, I discovered a light that warmed me, transforming my heart of resistance into genuine love. Come and discover how love can blossom where we least expect it. Duke Andrews Johnson was known to everyone as a great party man. His days were filled with extravagant parties, gambling and women who wanted his attention. They said that no one knew how to make them feel as special as he did. But one day, everything changed. Andrews received a letter from his father saying that he had to get married if he wanted to inherit the family fortune. With no choice, Andrews had to put aside his frivolous life and look for a wife to marry. One day at a ball, he saw a very beautiful young woman from afar who caught his eye. Andrews discovered that the young woman he saw at the ball was Duchess Tessa Keller, a very beautiful girl from a noble family. He thought that, since he was being forced to marry, no one would be better than her. But Tessa had already heard about Andrews' frivolous love life, and immediately didn't want to accept the marriage proposal he made to her parents. In those days, a woman's opinion didn't carry much weight. So Tessa was forced to accept Andrews as her future husband. Her family would gain a lot from this marriage, and Andrews' bad reputation wasn't a problem for her father. Tessa felt forced to marry a man she didn't want and who led a love life very different from what she expected from a man she was going to marry. This made her hate him deeply. Before the wedding, Duke Andrews came to the house of his fiancée, Tessa, so that they could get to know each other better. But Tessa didn't want to see him. She was too nervous and preferred not to. When Andrews heard this, he laughed and thought, "Ah, she's playing hard to get, huh? But I know how to deal with it. I know how to calm down a woman with strong instincts very well." After that, Andrews went back to his parties and the women who were always around him. Since he was a teenager, he had frequented the city's brothels, a habit he learned from his godfather when he was only 15. Now 30, he was known as an excellent lover. When he arrived at the party places, the most demanding women would vie for his attention, wanting to be satisfied by his caresses. Although Tessa avoided any contact with the repugnant Duke, as she called him, the wedding day finally arrived. For her, it was a day full of sadness. Everyone around her was overjoyed, but Tessa felt like she was being taken away for punishment. What a difficult situation for Tessa. Being forced to marry someone she didn't like. The wedding was a big event in society. The bride and groom's families were pleased. One hoped to transform a libertine, and the other benefited financially from the union. And, as always, after the wedding party comes what happens next. And this story will be no different. After the party, Tessa was taken by Duke Andrews to live in the castle. While Andrews relaxed in the library with a glass of wine, tired from the ceremony, the housekeeper showed Tessa the couple's bedroom. After the housekeeper left the room, she locked the door with a key. Shortly afterwards, Andrews went there excited, thinking that the night would be short enough to enjoy the honeymoon with his wife. But he was wrong, my friends. The door was locked. So he said, "Tessa, darling, open the door, please, I want to come in. Now we're husband and wife sharing the same room." She replied quickly, "I was forced to marry you, but I doubt anyone would force me to lie with you. Go find your mistresses. Have a good night." The Duke, full of rage, followed his wife's words. That night, in revenge for all this, he indulged in the most sordid pleasures a sane mind could think of. The next morning, while Tessa was having her coffee, Andrews showed up looking angry and said, "There's no point in trying to evade your duties as my wife, Tessa. You're going to be mine anyway." It could be now or later. It makes no difference. She looked at him with a sarcastic smile and replied, "We'll see, my dear. We'll see." That night, she refused again, and Andrews once again sought solace in the arms of other women to ease his sadness. After more than a month of marriage, Andrews still hadn't managed to get a full night's sleep in the bedroom. He wondered, where am I going wrong? I've never had a woman who didn't surrender to my charms, begging for my love. Although Andrews was very experienced in the art of romance, he forgot to learn an important lesson. Not all women are the same. Conquering some may be easy, but really understanding their feelings is another story, a great mystery. Andrews was so surprised by Tessa's resistance that he started trying everything to win her over. First, he stopped knocking on her bedroom door every night. Then he tried to get closer to her, to get to know her better. But what's interesting to know is that when he stopped knocking on the door and asking to come in, Tessa was surprised and thought that he didn't really want her anymore. One day, Andrews invited Tessa for a walk in the castle gardens, and she accepted. They walked among the beautiful flowers and talked about many things. This morning stroll became a habit for them. Without realizing it, Andrews stopped visiting the places he used to, because the person he deeply desired wasn't there. A new feeling began to grow in Andrews' heart. He felt happy just being next to Tessa, admiring her beautiful eyes, listening to her soft, sweet voice. Watching the sun shine on her red hair, which fell delicately over her shoulders. In the same way, Tessa was also enjoying talking to Andrews and gradually realized that the repulsion she felt towards him was more because of gossip and other people's comments than because of him himself. There was no denying that Andrews was really charming and that he could win women over easily, because he was very handsome. But Tessa began to see him beyond his physical appearance. She saw a man who really wanted her and who was willing to change in order to win her over. That was very important to her. People often want others to change to fit into their lives, but Andrews was trying to change to fit into her life. Suddenly, Tessa's heart was filled with love for her husband, who was trying to become a better person. The cold months arrived, and in the great palace, the nights were freezing. On that particular night, Tessa's bed seemed huge and even colder, with the snow falling non-stop outside. The fireplace was lit in the bedroom, but the cold still dominated the room. Tessa's heart needed warming. As she shivered under the covers, she heard, "Tessa, would you like some tea to warm you up?" It was Andrews. She got up and opened the door, saying, "Of course, Andrews, it's very cold tonight." At that moment, Andrews thought to himself, "Oh, my dear, how I could warm you up with my hugs and kisses, until you felt warm inside." But he didn't say anything out loud. "Como in. A warm cup of tea would be lovely," she said. The two drank their tea in silence, but in their minds there was a whirlwind of thoughts. Thoughts of desire, of caresses exchanged, of passionate kisses. When tea was over, Andrews got ready to leave. Even though he wanted to stay and fulfill all his dreams of love with her, Andrews opened the bedroom door and turned to say goodnight. At that moment, Tessa looked at him and said, "The palace is too cold. I'm freezing in this bed. Do you want to stay here and spend the night just to keep me warm?" Dear spectators, a wolf is always a wolf, even if he disguises himself as a lamb. He'll always have his wolf flame. Andrew's eyes shone, like the light from the fireplace, and his seductive side returned. Looking at her, he replied, "Of course, my love. I'm going to heat you up so much that your body will be on fire with pleasure." And he began to take off his nightgown. Tessa, surprised and embarrassed, exclaimed, "But I'm cold and you're taking my clothes off?" Andrews smiled reassuringly and replied, "Relax. You'll warm up, I'm sure." Then he gave her a kiss, showing her his fame and what he was here for. After the kiss and the night full of caresses and love, Tessa felt a mixture of emotions: confusion, surprise, and a slight touch of admiration for Andrew's boldness. She realized that, behind his reputation as a libertine, there was a man who longed to be truly loved. Over time, what began as an arranged marriage turned into true love. Andrews proved to be a devoted companion, always there to support and care for Tessa. And she, in turn, discovered in him a partner who understood her deeply and loved her unconditionally. Did you like this love story that started unexpectedly and turned into something special? Then like it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more exciting stories like this one.